Hello, I'm Richard Fletcher. I'm here with Shrewsbury reporter Lewis Cox. And Lewis, Shrewsbury at the weekend.
Yeah.
It was a defeat, but the fans this time were they were happier with the performance, how it went.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? I've wrote this as well. You know, you're leaving after a defeat, yet things seemed a little more upbeat, a lot more upbeat actually than the 7 days before when they beat Wycombe.
Yeah.
But you were there that day, it was pretty toxic really. So it was a difficult way to gauge it really, because you're thinking, alright, they've lost to Portsmouth, which most expected. But they've put in a really encouraging display and more than matched a Pompey side managed by Kenny Jackett, who are one of the better teams in the league, outplayed them for serious parts. On balance, possibly the better team. You know, same old sort of lack of clinicalness in both boxes has cost them. But you've got to try and be encouraged and take heart from the manner of the display. I think certainly the start, 30 minutes time, were pretty much unplayable, and Portsmouth couldn't live with them, couldn't get out. So I think you really have to cling and clutch to that. Sam Ricketts certainly will see why that went right, hope to replicate it. But, you know, we've seen Town raise it against bigger sides all season in the FA Cup and in the league, and really struggle against the many sides around them. So
why do you think that is?
I think that could be a mental thing. I'm just thinking out loud. I think, you know, it's when there's more of an occasion, a bigger ground, bigger crowd, I just think it's easy to get yourself up. As bad as that sounds, that you know, players might not be able to get themselves up for a lower profile game, I think it could be the case because, you know, they've got good quality there and a team of players that shouldn't be where they are. So if they were more consistent over the season, they'd be out of this bottom 12 business. Certainly got a squad that shouldn't be in it, in my opinion. So the quality's there. So you wonder, what if it's not the ability? What is it? Is it the mental side? Is it the fact that they had a manager change and they couldn't adjust? Obviously, there's a really tough run of 10 league games without a win around Christmas. Is it now? Ricketts obviously finding things slightly, you know, things have improved recently, but Ricketts finding things a little bit tough, and he's rotating a player, struggling to get their head around that and struggling to find a rhythm, a similar 11. Bit of maybe all of these, I think. A lot of fans have said, are these players in this squad really as good as, you know, what some people say? But there's certainly individuals there that mean shouldn't be where they are, especially given how tight it is. So a lot of games left against crunch side, you know, teams around them. Take Saturday, for example. So that needs to change really for these last games if they're going to stay up.
And with Saturday, it was such a shame. You know, they're 1-0 down, fairly tight game, like you said, performing so well, and then it's a defensive mistake in the second half that's undone them and it's killed the game off them. When really they could have possibly taken a point out of it.
Absolutely, 11 minutes to go, and you know, a bit of a nothing. Town better side started second half. I think, you know, before the hour mark they were edging it, and at 1-0 looked at every bit like they could create something. Obviously 1-0 they only need a goal, and then 11 minutes to go, Pompey sort of got a foothold and a nothing ball over the top. They'd had a couple of moments, Portsmouth, but a nothing ball over the top, and Omar Beckles is trying to shield it back to keeper Steve Arnold, and it's just an almighty mess. It's calamitous. I wrote it as like like one of the football bloopers DVDs. It was horrible. The keeper smacked it. It looked like he'd kicked it off Beckles, but he actually kicked it off Brett Pittman, who eventually went on to score. It was a horror show, and I saw Ricketts just sort of turn away in frustration. And obviously the game's over really then at 2-0, and fans started to leave. But there wasn't the animosity, the boos and jeering as they went out. You know, there was just a sort of resignation about that game. But the fans that stayed to the end, you know, applauded the players' effort, and I think that's, to an extent, almost all you can ask for.
Is that down to the fact that Ricketts this time started the players that they wanted to see on the pitch?
But possibly that, and you know, not as much expectation. When they played Wycombe were like 8 without a win, falling like a stone. It was a big do or die game at home. Pompey, I think there weren't much expectations. But you know, if Town had collapsed against Portsmouth, gone 3-4-0, there would have been anger. So they can hold their heads high that they gave it a good effort. Players they wanted to see, certainly. Greg Docherty started, and that was a big one from the Wycombe game. Started in an advanced midfield role. Sean Worley, who's always the bright spot, was again on Saturday for me my man of the match. He was brought up from that right wing back role back to a more attacking role. Well, he wasn't out wide on the wing. He was in a sort of just off Okenabiri up front, and it worked so well. Docherty, Worley, Okenabiri up front. First half an hour, Portsmouth couldn't live with them, couldn't get out. They were combining so well. It's only one fine Craig McGillivray save that kept them out, and I really think that I'd love to see Worley and Doherty sort of stick there for the running, because I don't think many teams, struggling teams around the bottom, would be able to deal with those two players in full flight. You know, Tyrese Campbell starting on the bench, so to have his pace and fresh legs to bring on helps. Got two good strikers to pick from there, so that's what I'd do in terms of them. I definitely think that little personnel formation switch should stick around, but we know Ricketts likes to rotate his players, so who knows really which way he'll rotate come Saturday. But I think it was certainly a large part of the 11 and the shape that fans want to see. Yeah.
Okay, so that one's out of the way now. Portsmouth's out of the way. Looking forward, we've been looking at, both of us have been looking at the fixtures coming up for the rest of the season. Only 7 games left. A lot
going quick.
Is, you know, Shrewsbury obviously in the thick of the trouble. You know, it is panic station a little bit, but really, Barnsley aside, you look at the rest of those fixtures and say there's no reason why Shrewsbury can't get anything out of those.
Yeah, there's 7 left. The Barnsley aside, you're right. The penultimate weekend they go to Coventry, you know, on the sort of fringes of the playoffs, but they could be on the beach by then, could be out of the run-in mid-table. So, 5 of the 7 are against teams around them.
But then we have just been saying that
this is a problem. This is a problem. You know, they've got to raise it against the teams around them, because they've slipped up recently at Rochdale, at Plymouth, against Wimbledon. That's 3 for an example just recently, where they haven't won either. And you know, just 3 more points here and there would have like changed the season, really, wouldn't it? Change the scope of it. But I guess there's a lot of teams that could say that. I mean, Southend obviously is away Saturday, so we'll bring up, I'm sure later in the week, the hoodoos on the road and the terrible away form, which is the worst in the league. For me, it's at the Meadow. They need to get safe. 3 of the 7 left are at home, and they're at home against rivals. I think it's Scunthorpe, Oxford, and that one with Walsall on the final day, which no one's looking forward to.
It's going to be tense in the office.
Which no one's looking forward to, but I think, you know, they need to be looking at winning at least 2 of those 3 home games, or maybe the 3. Anything they pick up for me on the road is a bonus, because they've scarcely looked like winning away. Obviously they've only won the 2. It was 1 until very recently at Peterborough.
Is that due to a style of play at all?
Yeah, I think a mentality going away, and it's been so poor that maybe players have got in their head that they're going to have a struggle or an off day, or not be able to play their game for whatever reason. They certainly look better at home for the majority. So a win at Southend, or be it when they go to Gillingham a bit later on, or even at Barnsley if they manage to raise it at Oakwell, that'll be a huge bonus, because I see them getting a couple of wins at least at home. They certainly need to. So anything on the way could push them to and beyond that 50-point mark. I think it's going to be 51, could even be 52, that they're going to need this season rather than 50 points. So a lot of work to be done, to be honest. I still think, put my neck on the line, I still think they'll be okay. I think it'll be tight and close and might be the final day, but I still think they'll just about get there. So fingers crossed. It starts away at Southend this weekend, because a win there, and they're free falling. They're no wins, I think, in 11 or 12. Chris Powell's right on the brink. It's 19th against 20th. You know, it's massive. Massive game.
Massive game. Lots still to play for in this quite amazing League One season. For all the Shrewsbury news throughout the week and the build up to that game against Southend, please log on to shropshirесtar.com.